All right. Well, I'm excited tonight. You say, I didn't realize that we had a guest speaker tonight. Well, you should just come to church anyway. Amen. No one. Hey, come to church anyway. Now, I'm excited. We got Josh Manthe with us this evening, all the way from the Philippines. He wanted to fly in just for today and be with us. He's flying back right after the service. I'm just teasing. No, yeah, come on up. But he's going to present a little bit about what's going on there, and then he'll open God's Word for a little while. I'm excited. Howdy, sir.
Good evening. Does that work? It's probably the opposite. If he had told you I was going to be here, you may not have come. I think that was maybe what he was worried about. Let me see if I can. All right. Do we have? Dana, you maybe tried to warn me about this. I wasn't thinking I would hold this the whole time. Can I put it there? Sorry. Steve. Do you have one? I'm sorry. I'll take it if you got it. Is that better? Can you hear me? All right. Well, at about 1 o'clock Kansas time, yesterday afternoon, I was at the airport, and I just got here at about 4:30 today. So I've been in the air in an airport for over 24 hours, but it's good to be here. I have a friend who's getting married in Columbia, Missouri. So that family has graciously allowed me to come out, give me a few days to see family and to check in with church family. So I'm gonna give you kind of an update of what's going on in the Philippines, and then what I prefer is to then spend a few minutes answering questions and kind of talking, interacting, because then I preach, and I don't like for that to have to be. Jake already warned me that I have a certain amount of time where I'll need to wrap up, but I do like interacting on that level, and then I just have a quick message from the Word. But for those of you that don't know us, I see some faces that I'm not familiar with, but we have been missionaries to the Philippines since 2005, and we are with Kids International Ministries, which is an organization that takes care of kids. So we have an orphanage. We have an orphanage of about 70 kids. We just actually took in another orphanage called Horizons of Hope that was having some failures with finances. So we just absorbed them, and they've got about 50 kids. So our organization is overseeing caring for 120 kids that from birth age to 18 years old. And so that's our primary thing. We also, another one of our primary ministries is Quattro Christian School. And Quattro is the community where our orphanage is. And we have Quattro Christian School. And so years ago, after the orphanage started, and we started educating the kids in the orphanage, we got to a point where we were paying for them to go to school. We were homeschooling some, and it's like, well, there's got to be a better solution. And as we worked through that, we noticed there's an entire community of kids that don't go to school because they can't afford it. Even though the Philippines has public school system, you have to be able to get there, which costs money. You have to pay money for transportation. You got to pay for your books. And there was this community of about 40,000 people in the community that a lot of the kids weren't going to school. So we started Quattro Christian School. And the way they do it when you start a school in the Philippines, and it's probably similar here, is you start with kindergarten. And then the next year, you move those kindergartners into first grade, and you start with a new kindergarten class. And so we're all the way through 11th grade right now. And we have about 600 students. And those students are getting a solid Christian education in a community, in a place where that's not what normally they would get, where they wouldn't have access to that resources. Our organization is right now in the process of building a $3 million school to educate impoverished squatter kids. Do you know what a squatter family is? Do you know what a squatter is? In the Philippines, they have they have a lot of homeless. They have a lot of people. There's the very wealthy, and there's about 10% that are in this very wealthy, and then there's no middle class, and then there's probably 10% of the people would be considered middle class, and then you have about 80% of the people living on the poverty level. And so all these people through all the people at the top end of the economic scale through a dictator who took care of all of his buddies and cronies, they called him. President Marcos became dictator Marcos, and for 20 years he pillaged the country, took care of all his friends. So they own everything now. And so there was a political candidate that came in and wanted to win, because politics is where you get all the money in the Philippines. And he kind of endorsed this right of squatters' rights. So if somebody owns so much land that they can't keep track of, and you find a piece of it and you're there for a certain amount of time, you don't own that land, but you own the rights to that land. And then for that person who owns the land, they then have to pay you for the rights to that land, because you own those rights. You don't own the land, but you own the rights. And that was a political concept that was created. And this guy, of course, won the election, because all these, 80% of people in the poverty level are going to vote for that person, because that is going to give them the ability to have a little more structure, a little more security. So most of the families when we started in Quattro were squatters. Through some programs that we've helped initiate, through some government programs, not all of them are, but there's still a lot of people that are just living on a piece of land that they put up a house or a shack on. And so these kids have this awesome opportunity to go to a school, and as we get there, a $3 million school for kids that are from that demographic. It's pretty neat. And we're working on that, and everything we talk about need lots of prayers, need lots of support in terms of just praying for us. You guys supporting us to be there is huge. Talk about a missions trip at the end of this. So we've got our orphanage, we've got our school. Kids, we've got a family ministry that kind of sees opportunities to help husbands and wives and parents, kind of from the spiritual side of that. So we do a lot of things through our family ministry. We have what's called a feeding ministry, and we go out. Some of you heard me talk during the pandemic. We were feeding 30,000 people a day because people didn't have access to food and didn't have access because of the quarantines. Right now, we have programs set up with churches across Manila where we can provide food so that they can feed their communities as a resource to help get people into their church and as a resource to share the gospel. And then so after we've got the orphanage, the school, family ministry, feeding ministry, the last thing we do is short-term trips. And short-term trips is how I ended up in the Philippines. We have people that come to the orphanage. We have people that come to the school. We have, these are church groups and Christian schools, Bible study groups, men's groups. But we bring people out to the Philippines, and we just get them involved. They'll go out and feed people. They'll go into our orphanage. We actually, in our family ministry, we have a pregnancy clinic where women go and have babies. And we have a midwife and we have a nurse, but we also have people we have people that come from the States and they're there and they're helping deliver babies. We got college age, high school age kids that are there helping deliver babies because that's not hospitals are not a resource that these people have. And so short-term teams come in and they just get involved in all of that. And some of it is important to have short-term teams there so that they can help with things. We do all the construction at the school. That's a lot of short-term teams. But some of it, like our feeding program, when we take people out to feed a community, we have a Rubbermaid container full of lugao, it's called, which is like a rice porridge. And we're not, we tell them, we don't actually need your help to go distribute this food. But it's important that you see where we're going with this and see the way these people are living and see the joy on their face when you give them a cup of something that you probably wouldn't eat. And so all of that through our short-term teams, they get involved. And then the one that is especially significant for me is sports ministry, sports outreach. My first trip to the Philippines was with my brother Joe. Him and I and some guys from Lawrence went out to the Philippines and we played 21 basketball games in 9 days. And at each game, we were working with a local church to share the gospel, handing out tracts. But because if you held a church service on the basketball court, no one would come. No, maybe some would come. But in the Philippines, where basketball is everything, you hold a basketball game on the court, share the gospel at halftime, you get tons of people. The Filipinos love basketball. They actually just had the FIBA World Cup in the Philippines over from August to mid-September. So we had all the countries were all in the Philippines, and that was really neat for us to get to see and go out and watch. And so that's kind of a general look at what we do with Kids International Ministries. And then from Kids International Ministries, I'm assigned to Faith Academy, which is the world's largest school for missionary kids. So it's an international school. All the missionaries from various denominations send their kids to Faith Academy. And so I'm the athletic director, and my wife Val is the girls' PE teacher. And then she coaches volleyball and basketball, and I coach volleyball and basketball. And through that, we're able to take the children of missionaries and help disciple them. The school has actually started in the recent years allowing local kids to come. There is an academic standard that they have to meet, and there's an English standard and some different things. But the vice president of the Philippines, her kids go to Faith Academy. And she's actually in person a very nice, very sweet lady. If you look up on the internet some things, you'll find some interesting things that might make you think otherwise. But great family, great kids, and we get to disciple those kids, and we get to have them in our classes. Her son played in a basketball program that I did, good little athlete, but great opportunity to be a part of how that kid grows up. And so we have a lot of opportunities through Faith Academy to just influence these missionary families, take care of them, but also now starting to get the ability to influence some of these families that come from higher economic standards that have gone to the school. Over the last year since we've been back, we went back in August, late July, August of last year. And after going back, we've had a really exciting couple of years with our roles at Faith Academy. A lot of cool stuff. The Philippines held the longest standing quarantine for children in the world at 23 months. Kids were legally not permitted to leave their home for 23 months because of the pandemic. Now they did, don't get me wrong. They did, but there was a lot of questions, and even for us, and I know I had those conversations with Daniel, like I don't know how we go back and do our jobs, which are all about going out and getting into communities and going out and doing sports, and it's been really cool to see God just open those doors. We got back and a lot of people were like, man, we just didn't think you guys were coming back. And it's like, well, yeah, we weren't sure either. But as God led us and as God opened the doors for us to go back, we were really blessed to see that there's still a lot for us to do. Most recently, this last summer, I hosted the Azusa Pacific University women's basketball team. They came over and played 7 or 8 games, went and did a bunch of outreach, and we got to be a part of that. I was the one that organized that, and so we're sharing the gospel with kind of higher level college teams in the Philippines. I've gone to Australia a lot of years for the Baptist Basketball Carnival. And every year I go and we play in this basketball carnival, and it's basically almost like a summer camp church basketball league built around evangelization. And every year I go and I invite people to the Philippines. And this last summer they finally came, and we had 20 people. And you want to know how these trips impact people. I have a guy who's a cop. He's a copper, is how they say it in Australia. Really rough, actually really nice guy, but rough exterior. And we took him to a place called Tondo, which is where we do one of our feedings. And Tondo is a trash dump. It's called Smoky Mountain. There's Smoky Mountain. They have them all over the world, where people just dump their trash and then they burn it up for fuel. They dig through it. And we went through the trash dump with these 20 people from Australia. And at the end of each day, we debrief and kind of talk about it. And here's this, 50-year-old grizzly cop from Australia just crying his eyes out because he can't believe what he's seen. And so as we talk about the ministries, all the things we're doing for Filipinos, when we start talking about short-term trips and these people that are coming out, we feel like we're ministering as much to them as we are to the Filipinos. And then they left. I had 1, 2, 3. Who's the other trip? I had one more. I thought, no way, I forget that. I had three trips come out this summer, and then we got to have Mackenzie. She came out, and then we were involved with a couple other schools that had come in. And so throughout the year, we get a lot of trips, get a lot of short-term trips, people that come out, different schools. They have what's called Week Without Walls. So a school will send their group in as part of their curriculum for a week. We host what's called the Asian Christian Schools Conference. So when Val and I are coaching, that's kind of like our state tournament. But the biggest component of the ACSC is wherever you go, you have to have a ministry component. So we host a tournament each year. This year it's swimming, which you can pray for me on because I don't know anything about swimming. But I'm going to host 120 swimmers at the end of October. And one of the days that they come out is really built so that they can do ministry, so that they can get involved in our school, get involved in our feeding program. Our kids will go out to other places. Our boys volleyball team will go to, this is Faith Academy, our boys volleyball team will go to Korea. And they actually work with Voice of the Martyrs in Korea. We have a group that goes to Malaysia, and they will work with a ministry there. And so those of us that have been involved, we've really found the value for people in doing ministry trips. And that's something that I told Daniel I was going to mention when I talked to him on the phone a few weeks ago. But before the pandemic, we had some traction to get another Elm Grove Baptist Church missions trip to the Philippines, because Aunt Shirley did one. How long ago was that?
16 years.
Yeah. So the last time that Elm Grove has been to the Philippines has been 16 years. So I think it's time that we start talking about it again. Getting out and seeing what your missionaries are doing, seeing the amazing place that the Philippines is. It's actually a really beautiful place. And so I'll throw that out there now, not in detail, but we host teams. That's what we do. And so it makes a lot of sense for my home church to get another group out. Mission. You know, a lot of times it's teens, but it doesn't have to be. We had a group come out, and you know what they did? Sewing. They brought sewing machines, and they taught our ladies how to sew. And through that, they were able to provide income for themselves, and some of them are still doing that. So I'm here now in the middle of our volleyball and soccer season. So I do have a handful of things going on back there, which I'm trying to do. I don't have cell signal, but I'll be on my phone over the next week, just coordinating games and coordinating schedules with our teams there. So if you could pray for me with that amidst all the jet lag and everything else, that those things go smooth. All that in mind, does anybody have any questions about what we do? Does anybody have any questions about ministry trips?
Hey Josh, how many people are enrolled in Faith Academy?
Right now, Faith is up to about 550 kids. So last year we were down to like under 500, which is a tough level to be at. Oh, yeah, my knee hurts a lot, but my brother Joe tells me I'm stupid to continue playing, and maybe he's right. Probably he's right. He is a doctor of physical therapy. I love it, and it's such a great way to get to know people. Deacon, who just turned 15 last week, him and I play in a church league at a church called Favor Church. We don't actually attend the church, but we were invited by the pastor to come play because it's a good ministry outreach. But we play on different teams. And so we played each other the other night, and my team won by 30. I just think it's important. I think it's important to document that. Make sure that doesn't get edited out of the.
What's the history of the Philippines as far as how far back, like when the United States established back in the 1500s?
It was the Philippines was colonized by Spain in the 1600s. The U.S. got involved, and I actually coming in today, the guy at immigration, he's like, the Philippines almost became a U.S. state back in the 70s, and maybe not a state, but kind of like a commonwealth. And he's like, man, they really, he used some colorful language, but I'll paraphrase. He's like, they really messed up by not doing that, and maybe. Definitely they probably did, but the U.S. bases were there in the 50s, 60s, and the U.S. bases left in 1994, and there's talk right now, we got a new president last year, and there's talk that they're going to bring the U.S. bases back, which provides a lot of commerce, provides a lot of infrastructure and security. So it would be nice to see that, but that's not definite. But they've been, the Philippines' love for basketball comes from the military involvement in the Philippines in World War II. Yeah. In that time when they had all the Americans in the country at all the bases and all at the strategic points, that's when basketball really took off. And that's why they have such a love for basketball, was because of that influence from the American.
You're saying that basketball is one of the primary ways of reaching the people there.
It's absolutely for us. I mean, there's different ways. Not everyone there loves it, but it's the easiest way to connect. I mean, let's say I'm just trying to make friends. Like Deacon and I live in a subdivision, and we like basketball. So there's a court down the hill. There's another one over here. Like if we want to make friends, we just go there and start playing basketball. People will come out. You get to introduce yourself. You get to know them. You share this love of basketball, and then gives you the opportunity to connect with them. And so it's similar in just going out to provincial areas and finding a court. Actually, we have pastors go ahead of us and they find a court, put up a couple flyers. Hey, we're gonna have a game here. You get there and there will be hundreds to thousands of people because they want to see basketball. And especially if they know there's foreigners, that's sometimes a draw too. But some of these communities will drive through, and you can even look online. There's videos where it's like there's the 10 guys playing, and then the rest of the court is covered with people. And then when the ball starts to move, the court that's covered with people kind of opens up and like closes back up, and there's always just a circle of people on the court around the guys playing. And that's just their love for the sport and the way that it's just been ingrained in their culture. So it's definitely, the other thing, when we go out and do feedings, when we go out and feed people, there's a spiritual component to that. We're doing that with the intent of looking for opportunities to share the gospel. We bring a pastor that goes with us, and he does a Bible study while we're feeding the kids. So it's not just basketball. Given my background, that's the one that I'm the most passionate about, and the one that I've seen have huge success. But there are definitely other areas.
What about religious groups that you're competing with really for the souls?
Yeah, I mean, they would be 80% Roman Catholic, which actually isn't a bad thing, because they're not hostile towards evangelical Christianity. They are very open to it. We believe there's just a bit of a transition they have to make from the ritualistic side of Roman Catholicism to the relationship that is evangelical Christianity. But they believe in Jesus. They believe in the cross, but they also believe in Mary, and they have some things that are thrown in there. So it actually gives you a little bit easier path than, say, an atheist or a Muslim, or the approach to reaching those people with the gospel is significantly different.
I'm just curious exactly what area of the Philippines that you're in. I've never heard you say, are you here in Manila or on another island?
So we are in Metro. We are in what's considered Rizal Province, which is just outside of Manila. It is on the same island of Luzon, which is where Manila is, but just outside. Were you on a base? Clark or Subic? Okay, yeah. Yeah, those are actually really nice spots to go, because when the military left, Subic was taken better care of, but those military bases were kept in pretty good shape. And used for local things. Subic is still a duty-free zone, so you can go there, and they have some imported stuff. We're always looking for the good imported foods.
Yeah, you had mentioned that about 80% of the population lives below the poverty line. And
Don't quote me on the numbers, but it's something crazy like that.
typically within cultures that don't have a good quality of life, the sanctity of life, or the value of life doesn't look to be important to them. Is that something that you deal with too, or?
We've found, and again, I think this gets into the Roman Catholicism side of it, like abortion is illegal. Divorce is actually illegal. There are some pretty profound appreciations, I would say, even within those communities where we're working. I think as you get into the wealthier side of it, there's a distinguishable lack of appreciation for people that are below them in terms of economic value, and those people are seen as property, and there's not slavery per se, but amongst the very poor people, and this is one of the characteristics of the Philippines that I've always loved, is they're so kind. And they're so open and love interacting. They're not what you would think in terms of just bitter and angry and hungry, and They're actually a really pleasant, lovely people. The higher you get up in the economic, the more that changes. and I won't go into big detail there, but you get what I'm saying. You know, we are always shocked at a typhoon will come in and just destroy, a whole area, and they're just resilient, and they're happy to be alive, but they're also just like this. We're gonna be fine. We're gonna move on, and it's very different than what we would experience in our culture and what you would see in a lot of cultures. But they're a really neat people group in that way.
Is there much resistance to the LGBT?
Oh yeah, I mean, there's a whole demographic, just like there is here, and it's how do you put it? It's something we try to love people through. It's something where, I don't agree with what you're doing, but I'm gonna still be kind to you. Like we have volleyball teams, and for certain volleyball teams, there's a large portion of them that are in that demographic, and we sometimes get parents like, well, should we be having all these people onto our campus? And for us, it's like, yes, because what better opportunity do we have to show them the love of Christ through this sport and through the way that we care for them when a lot of people in their communities wouldn't, because of the Catholic background. And so we take you gotta be wise. Like you gotta protect the people in your community, but we think it's important that we learn to be loving and kind to them, because they are in a lot of ways ostracized and they are blackballed in some areas. So yes, there are some issues there, and with certain groups, we're openly involved in just trying to be the hands and feet of Christ in those scenarios.
Is school close to being finished?
Oh, I'd say we're about halfway. Like I think it was about $1 million for property, and then the school building itself was about $2 million. So I think we've got all the property. So I think we're about $1.5 million in. We actually had a guy came in right before the pandemic, and there's a girls' home. They're not part of our organization, called Consider the Lily. Some of you would know Josie Long. She runs a girls' home called Consider the Lily. Her mom used to come here and sing Consider the Lily, and Brother Siva loved it. And that was kind of her thing. And a guy came in and said, hey, there's no boys' home. What are we doing about boys? And so this guy just threw in $1.3 million and to build a boys' home. But we bought some more property right next to our school, and then he wanted to build a covered court, so like an outdoor court with a roof, open air. And that actually kind of helped our school, because there were some plans that we merged. So we're just piecing it together. But yeah, if a group comes out from the States, they'll bring some money and help pitch in towards the project. They'll do that. We've got it's a five-story school, and in the Philippines everything's concrete. So if you're here and you see a 5-story building being poured with cement, they've got a cement truck, and they've got a pump that pumps the cement up. They hose it out. In the Philippines, we still have one cement mixer. It's motorized now. It used to be by hand, but what's that called, Dad? Just the one that we had sitting at our house for 17 years. Just a motorized cement mixer, and then we'll have 50 people with a gallon bucket. And we will take 30 to 40 hours to pour a floor, and it is just filling it up, hand in buckets, up the stairs, pouring them in, throwing them over, collecting the buckets. And we've done, I think the longest we did was like 45 hours to pour a floor. Because we just don't have access. We don't have access to that kind of technology, and financially, it's just not. So it's not available. So we have people that come out from trades, from high school groups, and it's like, all right, and we kind of make a game out of it, because you have to make it a competition to get high school boys or people like me to stand and pass buckets of concrete for 45 hours. But we had a kid from Australia, Jamie, who did 45 hours without stopping. He was the only one, and he's the legend.
The electricity is so minor, I mean, you don't have much electricity?
Oh no, they have electricity. It's really expensive. Electricity is really expensive, but it's definitely accessible.
What about the exchange rate on the money?
55 pesos to the dollar. That doesn't give you a great, but we use the McDonald's factor to help people understand. Like a Big Mac meal here is like $7.50, and a Big Mac meal there is about $3.50 to $4. So depending on what you're doing, it's not 55 times the spending power, but it's 2 or 3 times, which is nice. But then for gas, it cost me $75 to fill up a small, our small SUV, which lasts about a week and a half. So that ends up being like $6 a gallon. But they do everything by liters there, so I don't really know.
The school you're building, you mentioned that you're getting some public assistance. Is that from the Philippine government?
No, sorry. The assistance we get is all from donations. We don't. Kind of a funny aspect. There was nothing in the community. We came in with the orphanage. We came in with the school, and then we came in with medical stuff and started providing infrastructure. We came in with water, helped get them running water, and everything was these shacks, right? And then as life got better in the Philippines, because it's small, it's small land, lots of people, they build up. And so you could see houses building up because they had more resources, they had more money. They were spending 30% of their income on water when we got there, and they just had water trucks would just drive through, fill up their water barrels. They'd have to boil it to even use it. But when Manila Water comes in and you get that same amount of water for 10% of what you were paying, you have more money to do other things. When you have running water, there's not waste that's sitting, there's not sickness. And so everything started building up. And then one day we showed up and there was a school. The government had come in and within like 2 weeks built a school. Because they wanted credit. They wanted credit for what was happening. And it was like, well, great. You guys educate some kids, we'll educate some kids. We don't see it as a rivalry. They try to tell everyone they're the ones, impacting this community. It's like that's fine. Do that. Like we're interested in building relationships with these people. Like we don't care what the other people think. We don't care about politics, but it was funny because there was no public school in the area, and then as soon as things got to where they were improving, they came in and honestly didn't need a school at that point. They came in and built one. So.
You say you have concrete floors, are the walls concrete?
Yeah, everything. They'll start with hollow block, and then they'll rebar the middle and fill it in with concrete. But yeah, everything's concrete because when typhoons and earthquakes and all of that, we haven't had an earthquake that has caused damage where we've lived, but we've had typhoons that have just destroyed everything that's not concrete. It just comes in and it just rips it out. We've had, massive flooding. Like if it rains for 15 minutes, the golf ball, we call it, which is where we come into our subdivision, it'll be 4 feet of water. And it'll clear out in about 15, 20 minutes once it stops. But the rain is crazy there. And it's rainy season right now because you have rainy season and dry season, and that's it. But yeah, so people that are building for any sort of longevity do concrete. All right. No, that's good. Jake, how long do I have? I'm already past my time, aren't I? No, I do want to share just a little bit. So if you want to open to Luke 2, and then I'll just open us in prayer, and yeah, I'll just talk for about 5 or 10 minutes, and then we'll get to our prayer time. Lord, thank you for the opportunity to be here. Thanks for safe travel for me. Thanks that everyone got here safely. Just be with us tonight as we look into your word and just share a little bit about what it says and some experiences that you've put on my heart. Your name we pray, amen. So in the Philippines, we have what's called the Ber months, which is the months ending in BER, September, October, November, December. But we refer to them as the Ber months in reference to Christmas. And so, because once it's September 1st, it is Christmas in the Philippines. And I love it, and I wish that I had thought ahead. There's a guy who wrote a Christmas song. His name's Jose Marichan, and he's Filipino. He wrote a Christmas song. You would know it. But all through August, they have memes of this guy like popping his head out from behind stuff. And so he has this prominent Christmas song, and all through August, it's like people on their phone, and he's a guy on his phone, and you can just start to see Jose Marichan. Because Christmas is coming. When it's August, Christmas is almost here. And as soon as you get to September 1st, the lights are up, the music's on, it is Christmas. And so, being Christmas time for me, I wanted to get into a little bit, and not even the story of Christmas, but I want to touch on one quick thing. If you look in Luke 2, chapter 1, sorry, my Bible reset here, so. And I'm just going to give you the first part. And it came to pass in those days that there went out a decree from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be taxed. And that's all I'm going to talk about. I do have the excuse to talk about Christmas, but I'm not really going to talk about Christmas. What I want to talk about is it came to pass and what that means. It is used over 140 times in the King James Bible. And so they say it came to pass. And what it came to pass means, if you look specifically at that scripture, they get into this decree from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be taxed. And I'm sure there's a pretty big story behind all the politics and everything that happened for Caesar Augustus to say, we're going to tax, we're going to do a census. And so there's this huge, huge story, and the Bible sums it up and says it came to pass. And so as you look through the scripture when this is used, it's basically when my brother Joe says, to make a long story short. But I think it's more than that. And I think the idea that we're trying to get to when we hear and when we read that it came to pass is there's a lot of stuff that happened for us to get to where we're at. And some of it is meaningful and some of it is important. But when they use that phrase, what they're saying is, where we are right now, the most important thing is where we're going, not how we got here. How we got here is why we're here. But where we're going is what's important. And so I love thinking through that. I love thinking through the story of Jesus and even the story of our Christian faith in the gospel. When Abraham is communicating with God, when all of these things are being prophesied about what's going to happen, like that's important stuff. Like the Savior's coming. And we get to the point and all we get is it came to pass. You know, all these things that had happened with the Israelites, with Moses, all of this stuff. And we get to the story and it's summed up and it came to pass. Because while it's important, it doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't matter in terms of what we're going to do. It's important and it impacts us. But the thing we want to talk about is what's ahead. And even in the story of the birth of Jesus, you're still talking about what's coming, and what's coming is the cross. And they don't use the phrase when they talk about the crucifixion and the resurrection, but I think you could also be like, so it came to pass, Jesus was crucified, and it came to pass that he rose again, because those still aren't the most important things. What the most important things are is where we're going. And that is our eternity in heaven with the guy who was born as a man and died for the. So they're important, like they're important factors, but they're not the most important. And so I had a number of points that I wanted to talk about, and I'm going to take some of them out. But I want to talk about success and failure, and that's my thing when I'm discipling kids through sports, success and failure. I've got Hebrews 12, wherefore seeing we are also compassed about with so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which doth easily beset us, and run with patience the race that's set before us. So a lot of times we're standing in a place and it's like, look what a mess I've made. Look what I've done. I've made this huge mess. And a lot of times, we're looking back at this great experience. Now, it can't be a lot and a lot, but sometimes we're looking at a mess. Sometimes we're looking at a great experience. And I think the important thing in that phrase is, it doesn't matter. It does not matter as much what has happened as much as what's in front of us. And so we talk about, it says we're encompassed by a great cloud of witnesses. Let's lay aside the weights and the sin. And so when we talk about it came to pass, like all these mistakes that we've made, get rid of them. They're gone. Who cares? Don't get me wrong, they're important. Learn from them. Understand what they taught you, but don't let them be weights. I think that's something that a lot of people need to hear. But here's the other one that people need to hear in terms of where we've come from and where we're going. Deacon, my son, who loves basketball, had a basketball game when we were here over COVID, and my dad was there. And after the game, Deacon's like, well, what'd you think? And my dad goes, well, none of you are very good. And Deacon looks at me and he's like, well, why does he say that? And I said, here's what Grandpa sees. Grandpa sees some guys that could be good, who probably think they're good, who probably have had some success, and he doesn't want that success to deter them from what's going on in the future. He doesn't want where they're at now and the experiences they've had now to stop them from reaching the goals that they might have in the future. So when you talk about it came to pass, we've got to take our failures and we've got to take our successes And we've got to say, this is where I'm at, this is what I've learned, and this is where I'm going. And let the focus be where I'm going. I saw, and so when it says lay every weight aside, that doesn't just mean the sin. That means the success. It means everything we've done that has impacted and turned us, let it be an impact in who we are right now. Let it be part of our character, but don't rest on what I've done, and don't be discouraged by what I've not done. Understand where you're at and move forward. I'm a basketball guy, and you guys that have heard me speak, you guys know I always have a sports reference. But in coaching kids, you look for guys that they look up to, and you look for guys that influence. And a guy that I never liked as a player was Kobe Bryant, and that was only because he was a Laker, and I didn't like the Lakers. But after he passed away and things started to come out about some of the things that he was good in terms of motivational, I sent a video to our volleyball boys who had a really rough day. And Kobe Bryant, who's sitting there, a guy is, one of the top, let's say top 5, just to avoid any argument. He says, the thing that I've learned is that the next day, failure and success should look exactly the same. You lose, you're disappointed. You lose, you're sad, you mourn a little bit. You win, you celebrate. He said, but the next day, they should look the same, because we should be going out the next day, whether we won or whether we lost, working to get to the next step, then working to get towards the goal. If you won or you lost and that was your goal, then you're done. But if you're looking at bigger things, and I thought it was really profound for us as Christians, the idea that God makes his mercies new for us every morning. And I thought, we probably need some of those mercies when we've had great days to remind us that was all him. And then those mercies when we've had bad days that he allowed us to walk through. Because no matter what, the next day we start over. We start with with everything we've had. It's important, but this is what's most important. And so I love the idea of it came to pass, and summed up in what has already happened is not as important as what's going to happen. And I thought to myself, and I talked to my family, my brothers, but I thought it's just an interesting statement. And it came to pass that Pastor Daniel was the head pastor at Elm Grove Baptist Church. And I thought, that's a really interesting statement coming from a guy who in 1984 showed up for my first day in this church, saw everything that happened, all the pictures on the wall, the old building, all of the stuff that happened, and here we are today. And while that stuff is great, you could write a book on everything. You could write a book. You could write multiple books on everything that's happened. The most important thing for Elm Grove Church right now is what's ahead of us. And that's the encouragement we want. And Brother Seba and Brother Webb, my grandparents, all these people, they would right now come up out of the grave and say, that is exactly what we want for this church. Don't make it about what's happened. Don't make it about all the things all the marvelous miracles that God did through this church up until today. Let's make it about getting more people into heaven. Let's make it about honoring Jesus more, not just sit and rest on the success we've had or be upset that things haven't gone the way we wanted at times. And that's the challenge. I'm 20 minutes over what Jake told me, so I'm going to close. But as I was reading through some stuff, I thought, that's really what God was putting on my heart to share. So I thank you guys for letting me come and be a part. We'll stick around a little bit afterwards, but let's close in prayer and then I'll hand it over. Lord, thank you for this time, and thank you for the opportunity to just learn from your word. Thanks that things come to pass. We don't rest in anything, good or bad, because we want to continue to work for you and continue to be part of your kingdom. Thank you for all these people here. Thank you for the legacy of Elm Grove Baptist Church, and pray, Lord, that we can all help make it a better place and a beacon for this community so that people will come to know you. In your name we pray.